Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. Today's daf is daf Ayin Zayin, right from the top of the page in קידושין, as we learned for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Sibja, and also in honor of Avram's wife's birthday and anniversary. The Hebrew anniversary, right? Not the English. Go by the Hebrew or the English. We use the Hebrew here, not the English. The Hebrew, good, very good. Okay, excellent. Kol hakavod. Ad mei Vesser. Baschol says the Mishnah. Baschol zocher psul manakunas. We're going to see later on in the daf, and several times it's going to be mentioned in today's daf. What is a halal? A halal, a person, a boy or a girl who's profane. Why are they profane? Because they came from an Isser Kahuna, somebody that a Kohen was not allowed to marry. That's what we're going to talk about. So it says, so a bas halal zocher psul manakuna. If a halal, a person who's already profaned from being a Kohen, in other words, let's say today, a Kohen marries a grusha. Child's a halal. He can't duchen. He's not entitled to matnas kun. He can't eat truma, etc. Let's say he has a daughter. The bas halal, who's a zocher, in other words, the father is a halal. The daughter is also psulim nakuna because she also has a name of halala, la'olam, and that means Rashi explains here clearly that it means if he has a son, the son's a halal. If he has a son, the son's a halal. If all the way down, if the chal has a daughter, a daughter is also, that's a bas halal zocher psulim nakuna, as opposed to if it came from a daughter, meaning a man, a halal, either let's say a Kohen marries a grusha, the child is a halal. Okay, he has a daughter. That daughter can't marry a Kohen. But let's say that daughter marries a Yisrael, their daughter would be okay because that's not law. Bas halal zocher. If it's a line of males, the father was a halal, the son was a halal, the grandson was a halal, all the way down. That the last one all the way down has a daughter, she can't marry a Kohen. But if one of those daughters marries a Yisrael, their daughter would be allowed to, as we'll see. So bas halal zocher psul manakuna la'olam. That means bas halal zocher, not bas halal any halal, because if you have a halal or a halala married to Yisrael, their daughter would be okay. It's only bas halal zocher psul manakuna la'olam. Yisrael shenas a halala, bituk shever, as we just see. A Yisrael who marries a halala, right? What is a halala? Her father was a halal, or her father was a Kohen who married a grusha, let's say, bituk shever lakuna. Their daughter is allowed to marry a Kohen. The next line is a sort of a repeat. It just mentioned because he said Yisrael shenas chalak bituk shever lakuna. So we say halal the reverse. If halal marries a bas Yisrael, their daughter is pasuk. It's really the same thing as mentioned in the first line. It's just to it wants to match up. It's the reverse. If Yisrael shenas halal bituk shever lakuna, so halal shenas Yisrael bituk psul lakuna. Rav Yomi. Bas ger zocher kabas halal zocher. He says the same thing over here when it comes to a ger. If a ger gets married, his daughter also cannot marry a Kohen. This is Rav Yuda's opinion. We'll say it's not the halacha. Rav Meir Shapiro Omer, Yisrael shenas gyoras bituk shever. If Yisrael marries a gyoras, the daughter is kosher kuna. You can marry a Kohen. The ger shenas bas Yisrael bituk shever kuna. In other words, avol ger shenas gyoras bituk psul kuna. So he says, no. If any one of them is a Yisrael, meaning if a ger marries a Jewish girl, or a ger means he's Jewish, but he's a ger, it's a convert. If a convert marries a regular Jewish girl, or if a Jewish man marries a Yores, their daughter is mutter to marry a Kohen. Only a ger that marries a Yores, their daughter is pasal kona. And that applies whether it's a ger, bechad avadim shechor, and afila yudoros, even if it's 10 generations, meaning they're all converts. The converts stay in the convert community. They all marry one another. Their child cannot marry a Kohen. Not should take imam Yisrael until the mother Yisrael. These are different opinions. Rabbi Yossi Omer af ger shenas gyoras bituk shever kuna. That's the halacha that we don't encourage a ger who marries a gyoras for their daughter to marry a Kohen, but if they did, their daughter's kosher to marry a Kohen. In other words, once a person converts, man or woman, or even both, they're both converts technically, and they have a child. That child could marry a Kohen according to Rabbi Yossi, and that's the halacha. My law. What do we mean in the first line? You say. I should begin with the second line. Bas halal zocher psul manakuna la'olam. What's the point of la'olam? We'll just say bas halal zocher is always possible for a Kohen. In other words, if a man is a Kohen, is a halal, meaning because his father was a Kohen, married a grusha, let's say, and he's a halal. His son's a halal. His son's a halal. What's the point of saying la'olam? Okay, his son's a halal. Just say bas halal zocher. If he has a daughter at any point of a halal zocher, he's a halal. If he has a daughter, she's married to Pasal Kohen. What if you say la'olam? Not the same meaning. I think it's like Mitzrayim Edomi, that they have a special halacha in the Torah that original Mitzrayim and Edomites, right? Those people, maybe those people, after 3 years they're allowed to, right? Nami, I think after it's only so until 3 generations. Maybe after 3 generations. Mutter Kamashman, we don't say that. It's also forever. So again, if you have a Kohen marries a Grusha, the son is a Halal. He marries a woman, their children are still Halal. His sons are all Halal all the way down. However, if he has a daughter who's also a Halal, Halala, if she marries Yisrael, her daughter could marry a Kohen. Yisrael should know a Halala. How do we know this? How do we know that if Yisrael marries a Halala, that their child could marry a Kohen, right? Bitok Sher could marry a Kohen. It says here, listen, it says by Kohen Gadol, it says, right? He shouldn't marry Isha Grusha. It says, Almano Grusha v'chalal zana elo yikachu. And he says, if he does, he will profane his children, like Chal Zaro, right? That's what it says, and actually it's previously in that parsha, it says when a Kohen's not allowed to become Tamei, Tamei Mace, Yitama Baal Ba'amav. So it says, Chal Zaro Ba'amav, and it says, Yitama Ba'amav. In other words, if a Kohen marries somebody he's not supposed to marry, he is going to profane his children. And it says, Lo Yitame Baal Ba'amav. He shouldn't become Tamei. Now, is there an issur on women Kohanim to become Tamei? No, women Kohanim are allowed to go to a funeral. Only men Kohanim cannot. When I say women Kohanim, I mean that their father was a Kohen. Bas Kohen is allowed to. So, but it says just like Lo Yitame Malahon Charim Blon. It's just like when it comes to Tumah, only males, not females. Afkan Shram Mekevus. Okay, very good here too. So, if a Yisrael marries a Chalola, their daughter could marry a Kohen, because just like the Tumah doesn't apply to women, so this Isser also doesn't apply to women. So the daughter of a Halala who's married to Yisrael could marry a Kohen. So let me have to beat us Kohen Gadol Tishrei. What about the daughter of a Kohen Gadol who marries an Almana? A Kohen Gadol marries an Almana. He can't now. A Kohen Gadol, not only is he forbidden from marrying a Grusha, a divorcee, he can't marry a widow, right? So their daughter, it says Lo Yichal Zar Be'amav, that if his children will become Chalalim. And might say here also it doesn't apply to women. It's only men, right? If you say that this Isser, if a Halala marries Yisrael, her children are okay. So the daughter of a Kohen Gadol who married Alma should also be okay, because it doesn't apply to women. It doesn't say Lo Yichal Beno or Banav. Zaro Ksiv, Lo Yichal Zaro Ba'amav, right? His seed, any seed, boy or girl. So if that's the case, Bas Beno Tishrei. So why don't you say that? If the Kohen, we said a Halal, right? A Halal has a son. If he has a daughter, she's still a Halal, she can't marry. If his daughter marries a Yisrael, then their child can marry a Kohen. But the daughter of a Halal, right? Meaning the granddaughter of a Kohen, Gadol, who married an Almana, or the same thing would be a Kohen marrying a Grusha, their son is a Halal, and the granddaughter, the son's daughter, we said cannot marry. If that's the case, the Bas Beno should be mutter because she's a girl. And you say girls, just like Tumah doesn't apply to girls, this shouldn't apply either. It says says more Ksiv Lo Yichal Zaro, right? His seed will be profaned. If a Kohen, let's say Kohen Gadol marries an Almana or Grusha, his seed will be profaned. Zaro, Makish Zaro Lo. The word Zaro is like Zera Shalo. Rashi says Zaro Ha'av Ha'azer Huskru B'Teva Su, in this one word. Zera Shalo, behind Kesha. That's the Hekesh. So his children are like him. Mahu Bita Psula, just like the Kohen Gadol who marries an Almana, his daughter is Pasul. Af Beno Bita Psula, his Zera is like him. His son is like him. Just like he himself, his daughter cannot marry a Kohen because he married an Almana. The same way his son's daughter also can't. So if that's the case, Bas Bito Titzer, we said at the beginning, Yisrael marries a Halala, the daughter could marry a Kohen, that their daughter could marry a Kohen. Why? She says she's also Asur. Zaro, Zim Kang, Zera Shava Mahani, we had there is Zera Shava. Zera Shava says Ba'amav when it comes to profaning his children, it says Ba'amav when it comes to Tumah, just like Tumah only applies to males. So the Isra of Chil Zera should also apply only to males, right? Not to women. So that's what we use it for. We use it for Bas Bito. In other words, how do you know Yisrael Shenasa Chalala, their daughter, is okay? Because we say we compare it to Tumah, just like Tumah only applies to males. So this also applies to males. So why don't you apply it also to the Kohen Gadol's daughter or to his son's daughter? He says, yeah, because we have a pasuk. It says Zaro. It says Leichal Zaro, all his children, and Zaro is the hekesh between his children and his son's children. So therefore, we say those are usher, but Bas Bito, even though it's also his son's child, but it's his son's daughter. His son's daughter, or his daughter's daughter, rather, not his son. His son's daughter would be prohibited, but his daughter's daughter would be mutter. Why? Because we have to apply the Gzeira Shava, which is matter women in some form. So we say that, yes, his own Zera is certainly usher. His daughter is a halalik. It says, Leichal Zaro. What about his son's daughter? That we learn out from Zaro, Zera Shalo, that it's also usher, can't marry Kohen. But we do have a Hekesh telling a Gzeira Shava telling me that his granddaughter is okay, right? Because it only applies to males, not females. So we apply that to Bas Bito, and that's why Bas Bito is okay. So based on these different psukim, that's how we learn out. Again, if a Kohen Gadol marries an almana, the child is a halal. If the halal marries anybody, the child is also a halal, right? And goes on and on and off. It's a male. But if the halal marries somebody and he has a daughter, a halalah, okay, she can't marry a Kohen, right? She can't marry a Kohen. But if she marries a Yisrael, her daughter could marry a Kohen. Her daughter could marry a Kohen based on these psukim. Again, but a halal who marries a bas Yisrael bita psula, this is repeated in the third line as well as in the first line of the Mishnah. It says, we already learned the Reish, bas chal zachar psula menkon la'olam. So I do Tana Reish, since we said at the beginning, Yisrael shenas halala, since we said in the second line, Yisrael shenas halala bita kshera, Tanami sefer chal shenas bas Yisrael, that Choshen Bas Yisrael, the child is puzzled. It's repeated just to even out the Mishnah, so to speak. Our Mishnah is not like Rav Destroy Ben Yehuda. We brought down his sheet several times already. The time of Destroy Ben Yehuda, it's just like Bnei Yisrael is a mikveh tara for chalalot. What does that mean? That if halala, daughter of a Kohen who married the wrong woman, or his son, or his grandson, or his great grandson, all those challah marries Yisrael. Their child is like a mikveh purifies, so their child could marry Kohen. Kach benos Yisrael mikveh tara l'chalalim. But the story says that not like our Mishnah. He says that if a halal marries a Yisraelis, also the child is okay. The child is a mikveh tara, and their daughter could marry Kohen, not like our Mishnah. My time to restore them. What's his reasoning? The pasuk says it's only a halala in his nation, meaning in other words, if one is a halal, one's a Yisrael, no matter if it's a halal marrying the Israelis or Yisrael marrying a halala, either way, the child is not a halal. It's only a halal if they're both the same. They're both halalim, but otherwise not. That's how he dashes the pasuk, not like our Mishnah. Tan Rabbanan, zaro ainly ela zaro yasminain. It says, by a Kohen Gadol marries an almana, or any of the other ones he can't marry. Zona, it says almana, grusha, chalala, zona, la'ikochu. So because it says Leichal Zaro, and then it says it, and if he marries one of them, his children will be profane. What about she herself? How do we know that if a Kohen Gadol marries one of these women that he's not supposed to, that she herself becomes prohibited from ever marrying another Kohen, that she herself becomes a challah? Hiatzma menayin. How do we know? Amar kavacham. We have a kavacham. Mazar shlovar ve'er mischalom. The children who did nothing. Kohen Gadol marries an almana. The child is a halal. Is it his fault or her fault if it's a girl? What did they do? They did nothing. They were just born that way, like a mamzer, right? Their fault. So mazar shlovar ve'er, he becomes profane. Hisha avra ve'era. In addition, she committed a sin. Because not only is there a prohibition on a Kohen marrying an almana shouldn't marry a Kohen either. She shouldn't seduce the Kohen Gadol, right? Because there's an issur on both of them. All isurim, almost all isurim, with the exception of a few things like shaving on the head and a beard. All isurim of lavim, Shabbos, Treifa, Yom Kippur, all the isurim apply to men and women equally. The same thing with erva. Not only is there an issur on a man committing adultery, there's an issur on a woman committing adultery. There's an issur on a Kohen marrying an almana grusha chalala zona. There's an issur on those women marrying the man also. So she did an aveira. If her children are profaned, even though they did nothing wrong, they were just born. So he showed that's a kal b'chomer. So the Gemara said, well, who atzmichech? Look at the man. Look at the Kohen. He did the aveira. He does become chel. And if a Kohen Gadol marries an almana, or a Kohen marries a grusha, is he no longer a Kohen? Is he no longer Kohen? Yes, the truth is today, midrabanan, we don't, if a Kohen marries a grusha today, and in Israel they don't allow it technically, but if you can get a rabbi to give him chuppah קידושין, קידושינ's chal. We hold not like Rabbi Kiva that even though it's an Israel lav, קידושינ's chal. So if they're married, So we tell them we don't allow the Kohen Keduchim, we don't give him an aliyah, we treat him that way, but he's still a Kohen. He's not a halal. So he says, don't tell him just because she did an Aveira, she should be Mischal. Look at him. Who asked me if Aveira, Beta Mischal. So Malu should get Mischal B'chomakam. Whatever he does, if he marries a Zona, Rashi says, whatever he does, whatever Isser he does, he's got a special status. He doesn't, even though he's got a higher status, even people of a lower status, he's not Mischal all. She Mischal B'chomakam. Tell me, she normally becomes possible if she slept with somebody she's not supposed to sleep with. She's a Zona. We had that case, many cases where, you have today where two people, let's say a boy and a girl, they're choser b'tshuva. It turns out he's a Kohen, right? But she slept with all kinds of people, etc. So he's not supposed to marry her, right? Or she might be a divorcee, right? A very common thing, right? Kohen marries, not supposed to marry divorcee. So what do? But it turns out that his own mother also slept around, right? So therefore she was a Zona. Therefore he's not a Kohen. He's a halal. Therefore he's no Isser. He's not a halal. Is a bad Kohen, a rotten Kohen. So he has no Isser marrying her. So all these kinds of questions come up. If you don't like the Kal V'chomer, if you don't like this Kal V'chomer teaching me why should the wife, the woman who slept with the Kohen who wasn't supposed to, right? It shouldn't become profane. In other words, you could darshan. Lo yichal means he shouldn't profane his newborn children, the seed that they're going to produce. You could also read it as lo yichulal. She shouldn't become profane. Somebody was kosher. This woman was okay. She was just an almana or a grusha. Nothing wrong with that. But she became profaned by marrying the Kohen gadol. Let's say the almana. So lo yichul zeh kosher b'neschal. What's your problem with the Kal V'chomer? You had a good Kal V'chomer. Madach what? The child who did nothing wrong is mechulal, is profane. She who committed a sin should certainly become a chalal. They were born in sin. No, he was conceived. Let's say he was conceived by a sin, right? And she wasn't conceived in a sin. She was kosher originally. Listen carefully. A halala or a halal is a person kosher nolda ben absulim, born from psul, born from from a forbidden union. Guess because they're apostle to marry him. Are a machzik rishoso the psula lo beneksham? What's machzik rishoso? If a regular man, not a Kohen, divorces his wife and she marries somebody else, and the other guy divorces her or dies, the first husband is not allowed to take her back. That's called machzik rishoso mishis, and it's allowed. Okay, that's possible. He's not supposed to marry, but the kids aren't possible. Low or the children are kosher. It's an abomination. It's an abomination because like you're throwing this woman back and forth between different husbands. You use her for a while, and then give her back to this guy. What's a halal kol shenodam and a psul kahuna? A halala is only from a psul kahuna, meaning, as we're going to see later on, if you have a regular Jewish woman, right? Jewish woman, this is a case happens a lot. She goes to university, those anti-Semitic campuses, and she sleeps with a guy. Jewish woman sleeps with a guy. You think it doesn't happen? It happens, right? Of course it happens. She now becomes a Zona because she slept with somebody that she's not allowed to marry. Now she can't marry a Kohen, but she's not a halala. A halala is only a product of a prohibited union of a Kohen. If a Kohen marries somebody he's not supposed to, he turns her into a halala and the children are halala. But that's different than Zona. So what's halala? Kol shenodam and psul kahuna. Gemara says, no, the ain, lo, no, the lo. What even only if he was born? Hare almana grusha v'zona, the lo, no, the v'kavi halala. They weren't born that way. You say only was born out that way. What about an almana grusha zona? The lo, no, the v'kavi halala. If an almana grusha zona sleeps with a Kohen, let's say Kohen gadol, it also becomes halala. She wasn't born that way. What's the halala that's mentioned in the Torah? She was never kosher at all. It was born that way. Kosher never had any shasa kosher. Was never fit. It was born that way. Kosher was born from a tzultana. Mama says, what do you mean mention? What's the main halal? When the Torah says halala, what do we mean? You don't need an explanation. What's the explanation? That the one who slept with the Kohen Gadol wasn't supposed to, like the Almana, she also becomes halal. That's a drasha that we just discussed over here, based on a Kal V'chomer or based on lo yichalal. We reading as lo yichulal. But what's the basic halal that we talk about in the Torah that doesn't need any explanation of the rabbis? Kol she'elam sul kohen. It says lo yichalal zaro. If the Kohen Gadol marries an Almana, he will profane his children. The children are born as halalim. What happens if he slept with an Almana 3 times? Now, what do we mean by that? Do we mean 3 different women? Do we mean 3 different women from 3 different husbands? 3 different women from the same husband? Man marries a woman, right? How could it be from the same husband, right? How can that be? Well, we'll see. We'll see. So, Almana, and chayv, only chayv 1. Grush, and chayv, only chayv 1. Let's say, in other words, if a Kohen Gadol slept with an Almana, we don't know what that means, but we'll see. He's only chayv 1 law. Grush, and chayv alachas. Let's say Almana, grusha, chalala, zona, if he slept with a woman who was an Almana, and a grusha, and a chalala, and a zona, all of them, this manchem keseder, if they're in that order, meaning she was first widowed, she married somebody else, she became a grusha, was divorced from the second guy. Then she slept with a Kohen. Kohen wasn't supposed to sleep with her because she was a grusha, right, from the second one, so she became a chalala. And then she committed adultery with somebody else that she wasn't supposed to marry, like a zona or some relative. If it's in that order, chayav all 4 times. But if it wasn't that order, let's say it was a reverse order. Zin, Sachan, Schal, and Skashman says he gives you the exact reverse order. She first was the zona, slept with a goy. Then a Kohen married her and she became a chalala. Then she was divorced from somebody. Then she was an almana. And then a Kohen Gadol slept with her. And a chayv, only chayv 1, because it wasn't in that order. And we're going to explain all this. What does all this mean? Amar Mar, almana, and a chayv, only chayv 1s. I almana. What kind of almana was Elam? Shabal, almanas Reuben, almanas Shimon, almanas Levi. What does that mean? He slept with a 3-time almana. When you think of what do you think of a 3-time almana? She was married 3 times. Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. They all died. Don't marry that woman. Okay. Survived by his wife. So he had in the paper for pay 2 by a year. They're helping the soldiers. All women, so all 99% of the they all survived the husband, right? So this lady was married 3 times, Reuben Shimon. If that's what we're speaking about, so why if he slept with he slept with her when she was on Amar of Reuben. She slept with him when she was on of Shimon. She wasn't on Amar of Chayvas. Hare Gufin Muchlakan, Hare Shem Muchlakan. If you mean not the same woman, what does that mean? An almana. We're talking about 3 different women, right? Number 1, number 2, number 3, 3 different women. He slept with the almana of Reuben, and he slept with the almana of Shimon, and he slept with the almana of Levi. It's 3 different women. So why is he only chayiv once? He's chayiv on each and every act. Hare Gufan, these are they're separate women. Gufan. Hare Shemus Muchlakan. They're also different ones. One was called the almana of Reuben. One was the almana of Shimon. They had different. One was Friedman. One was Schwartz, and one was Pollack. I mean, they have 3 different names. The 3 different names is really not important. So it says that's Stam mentioned. Like, but the main thing is that the 3 different women, right? The 3 different women over here. Even if they would be from the same husband, as I said, if they're the same husband, 3 different women, right? Or right, 3 different women who had all been married to this guy. Now they're almanas, right? Right? Can you have 3 almanas from one person? Well, we mean over here is, right, can you have 3 almanas from the same guy? Once the guy's dead, how can the second one be an almana, right? So it says near the Bechdina at Shemus Muchlakan, Shrebal Shlosh Nashim Nidos, Bel Machzev Nidos, Chayv Kazaf Api, Shem Echad. It's the same Nidos, Shikul Nashim Meish Echad. So the name is not important. The one's called the Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. Labdafka, do it in Gimel Amanas Shel Adam Echad, 3 almanas of one person, meaning maybe they became almanas later on, right? Maybe from one person. How can you have an almana of the same guy if the guy's dead?
Married 3 women and then he died.
Okay, very good. Right. You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. Married 3 women and he died. I wasn't thinking of that. That's right. You're right. Labdafka, do it in Gimel Amanas Shel Adam Echad, right? So the point is that it doesn't make any difference if one was from Reuben, one was from Shimon, one was Levi. That's immaterial. There are 3 almanas from one guy. Right? Like you say, one guy was married, and he had 3 wives. No wonder he died, right? So he died, right? So he died. Okay. Ela Shabal Mana Achas Gimel Bios. So the point over here is that they're three different women. So why do you say if she was an almana, three different almanas from the same guy, or three different guys, or the same guy, doesn't make chai three times? El Shabal Mana Achas Shalosh Bios. Maybe it means this. Maybe he slept with one almana three times. And then he's only chayiv once. If they didn't give him a warning, they only gave him one warning, let's say. So pshita then chayiv alachas. They only got one warning. You have to be chayiv three times. To be chayiv three times malchus, you have to get hasra three times. Edom hasra three times. If they give him warning on each one, only chayiv only once. Chayiv on each and every one. But nazar shows the yain kon. Let's say a nazar is not allowed to drink wine, right? Great products. He's drinking all day. Kula and chayiv is only chayiv one. Amalov, they told him al tishta. Every time he drank, they said don't drink. The who shosa and chayiv on each and every one. So the point over here is manavshach. If there were three different women, of course you should be chayiv on each and every one. Melamai, you say he slept with one woman three times. So if he had asra, then he should be chayiv on each one. If he didn't have asra, it's obvious. It's obvious as Peter he's going to chayiv one. So let's read. Shabal al manas Ruvain. He slept with the mother of Reuven, Shahaisa Almanas Shimon, Shahaisa Almanas Levi. Here we're talking about the same woman, but she was an Almana three times. Again, that's the first case I mentioned, right? An Almana three times. She buried Reuben, then she buried Shimon, then she buried Levi. Now the same how Rachel was Muchlak, and I might think that she's called different names. Once she's called Friedman, Pollock, and Schwartz, whatever. Kamash Malon, Kamash Malon, that no, in order to be high three times, you need to have three different women. So if it's the same woman, one act, he slept with one. He slept the Kohen Gadol slept with one act. He slept with this almana. She happened to have already been married three times, right? Only chayiv one time. All right, if it's three different women, yeah, then the left. Almana grusha chalozona. Now, what do we say? If he slept with a woman who was an almana and she was a grusha and a chalozona, so Haitana Mike's over. What do you mean? There you chayiv all four times. So Haitana Mike's over. What does he hold? Iksaver Isachal Isser. Remember, does he hold that Isachal Isser that you can have one Isser another? Seif Chanami. What's the difference? What the order was? If she was an Almana, a Grusha, Halala, and a Zona, what's the difference? What the order was? She was a Zona first, then a Halala, then a Grusha, then an Almana. Isachal she be chayiv on each and every Isser. As the same woman is all four, she be chayiv on each one. The Iksaver Ein Isachal Isser. Felix Seder Nazanamilo. And if you say that Ein Isachal Isser, so once she's an Almana. Right? Once she's an almana, and the Kohen Gadol can't marry her, what's the difference if afterwards she became a grusha? Before the Kohen Gadol slept with her, she was an almana. Then she became a grusha, married somebody, divorced, and then she slept with some Kohen, made her a halala. Then she was. What's the difference? If you hold Einus or Chalisser, even if you did it in that order, also she showed me chayiv for almana because Einus or Chalisser, you can't have a second Isser Chal on the first one. Amarabba Haitana Isser Chalisser Leslie, right? He doesn't hold of Isser Chalisser, ain't Isser Chalisser, you're right. But Isser Mosef Islay. But if the second Isser adds on something, in other words, now she's ushered to somebody else, she has some new Isser on her, then it could be Chal in the first one too. Meaning, when she first became a widow, she only became usher to whom? To a Kohen Gadol, right? She's an Almana, she could still marry a Kohen, right? She could still marry a Kohen. So what happened to be a mitzvah Islay? Almana Asur the Kohen Gadol. When first became a widow. She got married, she became a widow, her husband died. Now she's an Almana, she can't marry Kohen Gadol. All right. She can marry Kohen Hedyot. Obviously, she married somebody else, a second guy, whatever, and he divorced her. Now she's a grusha, now she can't marry a Kohen Hedyot either. Since there's a new Isser on her of marrying a Kohen Hedyot, that Isser of Grusha applies to the Kohen Gadol too, even though the Kohen Gadol was usher to her once already as an Almana, and normally ain't Isser Chal Isser, but over here, that she's now a Grusha and she becomes usher to a Kohen Hedyot, there's a new Isser. There's a new Isser on her. So that Isser would apply even if she marries a Kohen Gadol too, that now when the Kohen Gadol sleeps with her, he's chayav for an Almana and for Grusha, even though normally ain't Isser Chal Isser. Okay. It tells us Isser Lagabe, so Migu, it tells us Isser Lagabe Kohen Hedyot, since there's an Isser now of Grusha, she can marry Kohen Hedyot, it tells us Isser Lagabe Kohen Gadol, she can marry Kohen Gadol. However, has this woman done any terrible thing? She was married once, husband died. Second marriage, she got divorced. If she, let's say she's a bas Kohen, can she eat truma still in her father's house? Let's say there's no children involved. Yeah, she hasn't done anything wrong, right? She married one guy, he died. She married a second guy, he divorced her. Didn't do anything wrong. She can still eat truma, right? But if she's a bas Kohen. Now, wait a minute. Let's say now a Kohen slept with her. What do we say when a Kohen sleeps with her? What happens? The children are halalim, and she becomes a halala because the Kohen wasn't supposed to. There was an israkuna. It was a prohibited priestly marriage, right? A priestly marriage was prohibited. She becomes a halala. Now she can't eat truma because she's a halala. So the Kohen Gadol also has another isser here now, even though ain't a chal isser. But the Grusha, the second marriage, added on an Isser for Kohen Hedyot, so that becomes also the Kohen Gadol too. Now when she becomes a Chalala, since there's another Isser on her, she can't eat Truma, so she becomes, that Isser of Chalala applies also to the Kohen Gadol, the first guy. If the Kohen Gadol marries her, he's Chayav for marrying an Almana, a Grusha, and a Chalala, because she has a new Isser. So the Gabi Kohen Gadol. Elazona, so Mechel B'Truma, it tells us Isla Gabi Kohen Gadol. Elazona, my Isser Moshe Bisma. What new Isser is about becoming Zona? Let's say she now slept with a mamzer or slept with a relative or something like that, that she's not to make, she becomes a Zona. What new Isser is there already there? She already can't marry a Kohen, a regular Kohen. She can't marry a Kohen Gadol. She can't marry a Kohen Edom. She can't eat Truma. My Isser Moshe Bisma. What Isser is there? Rav Chana bar Rav Tina, all b'shem znus is supposed to be Israel. Since the title of znus asers even by Israel, for example, Israel commits adultery. Since there's an Isser there, so we apply it here too. Rashi, a little bit above, says go im zin satachta. Let's say she committed adultery, she's also on her husband. So znus does even also her husband. Achnami afagav the high znus lav tachas balu, even though she wasn't married at the time. Right? Miu shames nus ashkam be most of them. Since you find that shames nus adds an isser, because it would be usher even on her husband if she committed adultery, so it adds on this too, and therefore the Kohen Gadol is also on all three. Now, so we have this pasuk. So this pasuk of Isha Zonam, Isha Amar Grusha Chal Zona. So why is she chayiv on all four? Because there's Isser Mosif over here. Even if you hold any Isser Chal Isser, right? But Amar Grusha Chal Zona. If you do it in that order, she first is usher to the Kohen Gadol, and then she becomes Grusha, she's usher even to a Kohen Hedyot. Then she gives a Chalal, she's usher eating Truma. Then it's the same Isser Zona can usher for husband in general. So we say that all four Issurim apply. But if it wasn't in that order, let's say she became a Zona first. Like I said, let's say this woman slept with a guy. She's a Zona. So at that point, she's already usher to a Kohen Gadol, Truma, everything. So then the other Yisurim, then even if she became an Almana and a Grusha Halal afterwards, she'd only be Chayiv if the Kohen slept with her, only Chayiv Zona. And this is all if you hold that Ein Isser Chal Isser. Even if you hold Isser Halal Isser, right? So this is still, and that's unfortunately explained because if you read the pasuk Almana Grusha Halal Zona Layikachu, you might understand it to be the woman has to be all four for it to be Asr. Maybe an Almana alone wouldn't be Asr. So even if you don't hold exactly like this, more unfortunately say there's a reason why you have to say that this whole the whole drasha here of Isser Chalal Isser is necessary, whether you hold Isser Chalal Isser or not. First, we said if you hold Isser Chalal Isser, if Hanami, if you hold Isser Chalal Isser, what difference what the order is, right? So the answer is Ein Hanami. If you hold Isser Chalal Isser, doesn't make any difference what the order would be. But the point is that you don't even need that you don't have to have all four for it to be also, even if you hold this or chalas. Okay, Tanatanik made Rav Sheshes. We're at the first of the wide lines now on Ayin Zayin Amid Beis. Rav Sheshes, Kol Shubeikach. Pasuk says that who could a Kohen Gadol marry? He must marry a psula, right? Who says who isha b'psula yikach, and then it says Almana Grusha Chalal Zona as Elo yikach. So whoever he could marry, meaning a regular psula, regular beloidach. If that psula becomes an almana or grusha chalal zon, he can't marry those. Regular beloidach. Kosher ein beikach. Let's say he couldn't marry originally, right? Ein beloidach, then the Isra doesn't apply. Meaning, pasuk says you have to marry a psula, right? And you shouldn't marry an almana grusha. So since the psukim are there next to one another, we say whoever he could marry, if that woman is an almana grusha chalal zona, can't marry those. But if he couldn't marry originally, then he couldn't marry this woman originally, as we'll see. Let's say it was an incestuous marriage, then the Isra of Lo Yikach doesn't apply. Let's say a Kohen Gadol had a sister. Now you can't sleep with a sister, but let's say she's an almana. Does it apply? It says almana lo yikachu. if he sleeps with the sister, is there an Isser of Almana? No, because it's only if you could have married her originally, then if she becomes an Almana, you can't. But if you couldn't marry her originally because she was a sister, then Almana doesn't apply. Who are you going according to? Reb Shimni Domer Ein Isser Chal Isser. It's going according to what it was Ein Isser Chal Isser. Reb Shimon Omer. If you eat nevela on Yom Kippur, potter. You're potter from Yom Kippur. You're potter from Karas. Why? The Rabbanan Ha'amri Isser Chal Isser. Now, who are you saying this according to? You're saying you're darshaning whoever is yikach re'ebel lo yikach. Whoever you could marry, there's an issue on that person if she's an almana. Whoever you couldn't marry originally, there's no issue. That's how he's dashing. The exclusion would be a kohen gadol who couldn't marry his sister, so the issue of almana doesn't apply. So he says, who's that going? According to Reb Shimon, it says ein issur chal issur. Reb Shimon says, if you eat neveh, let's say you have a non-kosher animal, say died right before Yom Kippur, so it's an avela now. And now in Yom Kippur, if you eat it, you're not chayav Yom Kippur because ein issur chal issur. Even if it died on Yom Kippur, so it wasn't an avela before, but it was just because of its Avram and Achai, right? So this animal was usher to you when Yom Kippur started. Either way, now Yom Kippur there's an issur to eat in general. So Shimon says ein issur chal issur, right? So he says there must be Reb Shimon knows ein issur chal issur. So the issur of almana cannot fall on the issur of achoso. They say that if you have an avela on Yom Kippur, you're chayav for Yom Kippur, you're chayav cars for Yom Kippur. So the Chart goes like Reb Shimon, it says ein issur chal issur. Therefore, you say, it's not like a drasha that trying to come from Sheshes that it's because the two psukim are next to each other. It says who we show yikach, and then it's amar gusha lo yikach because they're right next to each other. They're putting the two together. He just says no. He just said it based on a svara that whoever you could take, if she becomes an almana, you can't take her. But if you couldn't take her originally because she's your sister, there's no issur if she becomes an almana. So it says it must be Reb Shimon who says ein issur chal issur because according to Rabbanan, issur chal issur. It says Marfiut Rabbanan, Kim Rabbanan issur chal issur. When the Rabbanan say that issur chal issur by Yom Kippur, hanimil issur chomer, a more stringent issur. What's a more stringent issur? Yom Kippur's, if you're over on Yom Kippur, you eat your chayiv kares. If you ate nevela, it's only a lav. It's not kares, right? If you eat even a ham sandwich, it's only a lav, or a non-kosher hamburger, it's only a lav, it's not kares. So there it says he says Yom Kippur is chal on that. A stringent issur on issur kal, issur chomer lo chal. Over here, you're talking about he was forbidden from marrying his sister, right? That's an issur kares. Now she became an almana. That's an issur kal. That's only a lav. That's not chal. You can some say how about Daf goes like Rabbanan. The Amri issur chal issur. Rabbanan say issur chal issur. Rabbanan issur chal issur. Where the Rabbanan say issur chal issur? Hanimil issur chomer issur kal like Yom Kippur on the vela because Yom Kippur is more stringent. Aval issur kal al issur chomer lo chayil, and therefore it can even go like Rabbanan di Reb Shimon because according to Reb Shimon it's obvious. Hashti issur chomer al issur kal lo chayil. If Reb Shimon says that Yom Kippur is not chal on the nevela, even though Yom Kippur is issur chomer. Issur kal, issur chomer, mi boy, certainly the case. That's not necessarily a proof. It could even go like Reb Shimon. Mao is saying issur kunusham. I think issur kunush is different because Kohanim have more mitzvahs. They're on a higher madrega. So when it comes to kuna, I might think that the issur of almana should apply on the issur on top of the issur of achoso kamashma and not. So it can go like either way, Rabbi, either Rabbanan or Reb Shimon. I'm going to Pabla Bayit. So this Gemara really could have been said before. Yisrael abal achoso. If Yisrael, a regular Jew, slept with a sister, he committed a terrible sin of incest. Zona Mashavila made her into a Zona because she slept with somebody she's not allowed to marry. Chalala Mashavila, she's also a Chalala. Olo Mashavila. Mi Amrina Kalvachomer. Michai Velavin. Why did you say Kalvachomer? Michai Velavin. Ave Chalala. Remember, if a Kohen marries a Grusha or a Kohen girl marries an Almana, that's a Lav and makes her into a Chalala. Michai Vikris Lakoshkin. Certainly, if a man slept with a sister, which is Nisr Kar, certainly she should be a Chalala. Oduma ain't Chalala Nisr Kuna. Chalala is only if Nisr Kuna is involved. She's a Zona, but she's not a Chalala. Amalei, ein chalala el mitzukun. Like we said on an aleph, a chalala is only from a prohibited priestly marriage. Bilvad. Amarava. Minam milsa damarava ein chalala mitzukun. Where do we get this from? The Tanya, lo yomer grusha b'kohen gadol. What the pasuk says by kohen gadol? We just quoted this pasuk several times on an aleph. We said the pasuk says amaro grusha b'chalala zon lo yikafu. Right, you're not allowed to marry them. Why does it say by kohen gadol you should marry grusha? Lo yomer grusha b'kohen gadol, but they say lo rekavachom b'kohen hedyod. It'll say va'anamina hashla kohen hedyod asura. If a grusha can't marry a kohen hedyod, right? By Kohen Hedger, it says Grusha also. It says Grusha Leikach, right? It says Grusha V'Zon Leikach. So if we know that a Kohen Hedger can't marry Grusha, a Kohen Gadol certainly can't marry Grusha. Tasting Gadol b'cham Kohen Hedger, but I mean, Hash the Kohen Hedger Asur, the Kohen Gadol me boy. Okay, maybe for the punishment, but if you're talking about the Yisr over here, right? You can learn out the Yisr from a Kal B'chomer. Lama Nemer. Why did it say Grusha again by Kohen Gadol? Kashem Shachalukah Grusha, just like Grusha is separate from a Zona and a Chalala, but Kohen Hedger Kachalukah b'Kohen Gadol, to tell me that it's a separate Isser by Kohen Gadol. It's like Marpshita, Migragar. Why do you tell me that Kohen Gadol it's a separate Isser? Is it less now? In other words, a Kohen Gadol started off by being a Kohen, so he was already also to a Grusha. So now that he became a Kohen Gadol, he should have less of an Isser, just the opposite. He's on a higher level, right? So he says, Kem Shachal Grusha Mizano Chalala b'Kohen Hey Kachalukah b'Kohen Gadol Chita. Migragar, is he any worse now? Is he any less of a Kohen now that he became a Kohen Gadol? Just like there are three separate Isurim by Kohen Hedger. He can't marry a Grusha or a Zon or Chalala. Kach Almana, the Yisur of Almana also Chalukah Migrusha v'Chalala Zon Kohen Gadol, to teach me that Chalala is a separate Isur, that Almana is a separate Isur. In other words, if a Kohen Gadol slept with a woman who's a Grusha or a Zona, it doesn't have to be all of them together. A Grusha, a Zona, or a Chalala by a Kohen Hedger and by a Kohen Gadol, the extra Isser of Almana is a separate Isser. It's chayiv on that one separately. You don't have to have the other one, not involved with the other ones. Kach Almana, Chalukah, Megusha, Chalala, it's a separate Isser. Chalolam. So why did it say Chalala? I understand why it said what. I understand why it says over here, Grusha. Why did it say Grusha again by Kohen Gadol? We said, you know it anyway. He's a Kohen Hedger also. Oh, to tell me just like Grusha is separate from the Isser by Kohen Hedger, the same way Almana is separate over here. Why did it say Chalala? Why did it say Chalala? Chalala and Chalala and Yisr Kuna, to tell me that the Isser, reason it emphasizes Chalala again by Kohen Gadol, even though a Kohen Hedger also can't marry a Chalala, tell me that the Isser Chalala only comes from Kuna, not from anything else. Zona Lemon. So why did it say Zona? Never can Zona Mahon Zona. It says Zona in a regular case of what? Of a Kohen Hedger also can't marry a Zona. Ma Kan Zar Chalala. Just like over here by Kohen Hedger, it doesn't say V'lo Yichal Zar. It says V'chal Zar by Kohen Gadol. Just like over here, Zara Chulin, Aflon Zara Chulin. So that's why it says, in other words, they're trying to say, why does it say, what does a Kohen Gadol have over a Kohen Hedger in the terms of women he can't marry? An Almana, right? The Grusha, the Zona, and the Chalala apply to Kohen Hedger too. So why does it have to say all these by Kohen Gadol? He's no worse, he's no less of a Kohen just because he's a Kohen Gadol. So why do you have to repeat them? So Grusha is tell me that each one is separate. Just like Grusha is separate by Kohen Hedger, the same way Almana is separate by Kohen Gadol. Why does it say Chalol again by Kohen Gadol? To tell me that you only become a Chalol from an Isser Kuna, not from any other, not from incest or from any other Isser, right? Adultery does not make somebody into a Chalal. A Chalal is only from an Isser involving a Kohen. Why does it say Zona? To teach me that just like by Kohen Gadol, the children become Chalalim, the same way by Kohen Hedger. Amar Vashi, Hilkoch, listen to this case. Kohen Abalachoso, if a Kohen, God forbid, slept with his sister, right? Alachoso, Zona Mishavale, Chalala Lo Mishavale, right? If he slept with his sister, Habalachoso, he turns her into a Zona, Chalala Lo Mishavale. Why? Zona Mishavale says Rashi, Lokos Kohen, Habo Aleha, O Mishum Zona, Shrai Nivala Bilas, Snus, Meashala, Snus, Chalala Lo Mishavale, the Ain Kohen Shani, Habo Aleha, Lok Mishum Chalala. Because the first issue that he involved, Kohen Gadol, except with his sister, was a Pnuya, right? She was a Pnuya. It wasn't an issue of Kahuna that he was involved. He was an issue of his sister, right? Hilkach Kohen Abalachoso, Zona Mishavalech, Chalav Mishavalech. Now, once he slept with her, though, Chalav Mishavalech, Chazer Ubalech, he slept with her a second time, also Chalala, because she's already a Zona. Now he's an issue for a Kohen to marry her. A Kohen is not supposed to marry a Grusha, a Chalala, a Zona, right? Or a Kohen Gadol can marry an Almana. But if a regular Kohen slept with his sister, made into a Zona, that's a regular Isser of sleeping with her sister. It's not an Isser of Kuna. Once she's already a Zona because he slept with his sister, he turned her into a Zona. Now there's an Isser of a Kohen marrying her. There's Isser because of Kohen. Obviously, he can't marry his sister anyway, right? But if he slept with his sister the first time, he made her into a Zona. Now, if he slept with her again and he's a Kohen, he made her into a Chalala. Amar Buda, Kohen Gadol be Almana Lokashtayim. Kohen Gadol who marries an Almana gets 2 times matas. Ach mishum lo yikach for marrying, ach mishum lechal for profaning for Yichal. And there's one Isser shouldn't marry her, one Isser for profaning her. So if he slept with an Almana, it's two lavim. Looking at Mishum Yichal Zaro. Why don't you say also this of Yichal Zaro, the children? Maybe there's no children involved. Maybe he didn't finish the bia, so there's no zera there, whatever. So, but the point is for sleeping with her, chayiv too. Masav Rabba says, Amana Grusha Loka Mishum Shnei Shamos. It's mashma if she's an Amana and a Grusha, you chayiv for Amana and Grusha. As we said before, she was first an Amana, then it became a Grusha afterwards, so it's Isser Mosiv, even if you hold Ein Isser Chal Isser. If you hold Isser Chal Isser, she's an Amana Grusha. If you hold Ein Isser Chal Isser, so Isser Mosiv adds on Amana Grusha. You only chayiv two. Should be chayiv four according to you, because for each one you're chayiv for Lo Yikach and Lo Yichal. It's my love Shnei Shemus Vasula only for these two names. Amana Grusha no more. So low Shnei Shemus Alzeh Shnei Shemus Alzeh. For each one, in other words, she's chayiv Amana Grusha for Lo Yikach and Amana Grusha for Lo Yichal. So there'd be a total of four lav. Yachi Ema Sefer Grusha B'Chalutza Ein Chayiv Achas. When you say for a Grusha you only chayiv El Mishum Achas. Why is that? Why do you say only one? You're only chayiv on one of them, which is a grusha, lolam shnei shemus, but there's two isurim over here, lo yichal and lo yikach. So v'chalutza drabanan is chalutza really only an isur drabanan. When we say a kohen can't marry a grusha is the raisa, chalutza is drabanan because you'll mix up chalutza with grusha, but a chalutza is really only also for a kohen only drabanan. Is that really the case? By Tanya Grusha, only a Grusha, Chalutza, and how do we know Chalutza is also for a Kohen? Talmud the Isha. Learn from extra Isha. So the Isha, that Isha Grusha, the Isha teaching the Chalutza also. That's only the Rabbanim across Mach B'Yam. It's really only the Rabbanim. They just base it on the pasuk, but it's really they relied on that pasuk. But really a Chalutza that a Kohen cannot marry a woman who's a Chalutza. That's only a Rabbanim. Amar Abaya, Kiddush Loka, Baal Loka. If he was Makadasher, he gets malchus for that, and he had bia with her. We're talking about, let's say, a Kohen. Marrying a Grusha or a Kohen Gadol marrying an Almana, and he slept with her, he's chayiv malchus for that. He's chayiv for marrying and chayiv for sleeping with her. Kiddush loka mishum lo yikach ba loka mishum lechal. Okay, if he was mekadosh, just the marriage itself, he gets malchus for marrying her, for giving קידושין, and if he slept with her, he's chayiv for lo yikach for profaning her. Rav Amar, no, bal loka lo bal loka. Even if he got married to her and he's not supposed to, you're not chayiv malchus for the marriage. You're only chayiv if he consummated the marriage, right? Why shouldn't you take her? The reason we shouldn't take her is because you're going to profane the children and profane her, as we said, lo yichol. So that's a Rav is the psak that again, if a Kohen marries a Grusha, he's not chayiv malchus for it. It's also, of course, not chayiv malchus, only chayiv malchus if he slept with her. Umoda Abaya says you're chayiv on each one, but machzir grushaso. Let's say not a Kohen. Machzir grushaso mission is the case we said before. Reuben divorced his wife, she married Shimon, some other guy. And then he died or divorced her and she took her back. There, she in Kiddush for low ball, if he was in Kaddish and you didn't be a why? Because it says lakachta lios leisha. You're only chayiv if he actually consummated the second marriage. Otherwise, because there it says to take her to be for a wife. And that didn't apply. So if he only married, even if Abai says if a Kohen marries a Grusha or a Kohen Gadol marries an Almana, you get malchus just for the marriage, even though we didn't consummate by Masu Mishah. So he's moda that if you didn't consummate, you're not chayiv. Umodu Rava's moda b'Kohen Gadol b'Almana. Kohen Gadol Almana. She'im bal v'lo kiddush. If you had bia without קידושין, let's say Kohen Gadol just slept with this woman without having קידושין, also loka v'lo right? It says lo yichal zar b'yamo barachman v'yichal because he profaned her and profaned the children. Ushnei moda, both the Abai and Rav are moda. Machzir grushaso mishanissis. Again, where Reuben divorced his wife, she married Shimon. Shimon died or divorced her. And then he took her back. She involved, let's say it be without קידושין, she'ein alok, you don't get malchus. Why? Because there it only says, pasuk says, lo yoshev l'kachta, you have to take her back for a wife. If he slept with her or not. So that means this. If Reuben divorced his wife and she married Shimon, some other guy, not a brother, she married Shimon. Shimon died or divorced her, right? Shimon died or divorced her. She's now free again. Reuben's not supposed to marry her again. That's an Isser Lav. And if he marries her and sleeps with her, he gets malchus. But if he just slept with her, then he's not chayiv malchus. It's only the derech. The truth is also, if Shimon didn't marry her, if Reuven divorced her and she went and slept with Shimon, then she slept with Levi, and she slept around with 1,000 people, and Reuven took her back, you're not over on that because they didn't. It's only if Reuven was married to her, she was then married to Shimon subsequently, then Reuben's now to take her back, and if he takes her back and marries her and consummates, then he's chayiv malchus there. All right, we'll pick him here from the two dots tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem. Have a good day. Shavua Tov, everybody. Yeah, welcome.
He takes you back.
He's not supposed to be married.
The marriage is chal. She would need a get because it's only in Israel. Only according to Rekiva, Israel Kedushin is not topus, but according to everybody else. We were discussing that issue. I think the other day that in terms of nachla is there anyway. Nachla is even from a mamzer. If a man has a child out of wedlock, even if he has a mamzer, which means that he couldn't have been married to this woman, the child is still his child in terms of nachla, in terms of Yerusha.